Dexter Morgan, you a bad mother. Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about Dexter Morgan. Oh, this episode was fantastic. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Asia Esterak Hour, where film meets conspiracy and pop culture gets a reality check. From sharp recaps to sci-fi theories and media deep dives, Asia Esterak serves it unfiltered. Let the binge begin.
All right, welcome back to the Asia Esterak Hour. I'm Asia Esterak. All right, y'all, Dexter Resurrection, episode 7, Course Collision. That's the name of the episode. Okay, so we are on this weird little private island thing, giving creepy Illuminati. Dexter and the other creepy serial killers, they take this helicopter flight to this huge mansion situation with Prater, Charlie, aka Uma Thurman, and Peter Dinklage. Um, so of course he's tripping because Gareth's twin is there, and he even says it's like staring at staring at a ghost. And he's just kind of the brother has not figured out anything at this point. He doesn't know that Dexter took out his brother, took out his twin. So they go inside, and I guess to this, like, there was like this big grand table or whatever. They go in and you find out that what's his face from Modern Family, the Rapunzel killer who likes to cut girls' ponytails off, he's doing a show and tell today. So before that, Leon Prater says to Dexter, like, you didn't bring everything with you. And Dexter's like, what are you talking about? He's like, what about your tokens and stuff? Because today is your show and tell. And Dexter's like, got him right here, talking about he has that backpack that Red carries. So they all sit around, and what's his face? Al, the Rapunzel killer, the dude from Modern Family. So he does his presentation. This fool pulls out a video recording device. He's like, yeah, I got this for Christmas from the family. This fool set up a camera, I guess like a GoPro type camera on his hat, shows him talking into the camera, and then shows him riding a bike following some girl with, of course, a long ponytail. So Dexter's watching this shit horrified because dude literally films himself strangling the girl. He fakes like he needs help and ends up getting her they show him fall. He cycles ahead of her and then goes off to the clearing, right? Falls off the bike like he's hurt, and then she's jogging by. Oh, I need help. Oh my God. Remember Ted Bundy used to do that? Can you help me with the stuff in my car? My arm's broken, shit like that. Just don't help nobody. Get home safe, don't help nobody. Just be like, no say nada. I don't speak English. Bye. So, of course, he nabs the girl. What's crazy is that he filmed it. So, as he's strangling this young woman, they're showing Prater watching it. They're showing Garrett's creepy ass watching it. So Dexter's watching them watch this dude kill this girl. And everyone seems kind of aroused by it, especially the Garrett dude. He's like, that shit was creepy as hell. That was so creepy. Dexter, of course, in his head is like, that's it. So the next scene, they show him in the bathroom washing his face, and he's like, I gotta separate myself from these people, aka take all these assholes out. So of course, he's also freaking out because it's his turn to do the show and tell. And he don't have shit. What's he gonna do? So he's in the bathroom wearing Red's hood. He's got that little thingy that he uses to cut folks' heads off. Not Dexter, the guy Red, Ronald Schmidt. And of course, Dexter's dad, his little hallucination is in there, and he's telling him, like, you're gonna have to do this if you want to pass, but you got to get out of here. And Dexter's just like, now when they all first get to this like mansion situation off the helicopter, he gets a text from Harrison. Harrison wants to go back to school, so he texts Dexter about going to check out this one college, and Dexter's hoping that he can get there in time to be there with Harrison, because that's what I love about this current season. Dexter's becoming more human, as ironic as that sounds, because he wants to be a dad. He wants to be a good person. And that's why when this scene where they're watching homeboy, the ponytail dude, kill this girl is making Dexter's blood boil. And it's another reason that Dexter, you do have empathy. You're not a complete monster like the rest of these folks. You know, they just killing and kill. You're taking out the shit. You taking out the trash. So anyway, meanwhile, while he's still talking to his dad, preparing in the bathroom, over in a detective I can't remember that lady's name. The woman and the dude. I think her name is actually Detective Olivia. I'm thinking of Benson and Stabler, y'all. But Batista's in there, and of course he's pissed and he's challenging her. He's like, because he's talking about Lady Vengeance offing herself. And he's like, do you really think she would do that? Like, none of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. He puts down Dexter's old mugshot and he's like, he has something to do with this. So what's her face? She said, listen, I know that you're frustrated. I understand, but we have to follow the evidence. Um, and right now, none of the evidence supports your theory. So Batista's still getting mad, and he's like, "You're." He's still trying to argue his point. So her partner, the dude, he's like, "Do you really think that this guy Dexter snuck in there really quick, kills her, has her hang herself, and then sneaks back out of a maximum security prison?" And Batista's just like, so he goes, "Can you at least give me access?" Batista asks her if he can get a copy of the DMV records because, you know, he feels defeated. So Dexter does his presentation. He actually does his presentation before that scene, but, you know, whatever. It's the Asia Esterak Hour. I just be doing my own thing. But anyway, so Dexter gets up in front of these creepies and he doesn't know what the hell he's going to say because he's even in his head. He's like, he ends up taking off the hood and he's like, you guys don't really know Red or Ronald. And he starts basically being very vulnerable. Even though he's Red, he's talking as himself, Dexter, and kind of opens up to the group about about what it felt like to kill, just being very vulnerable and open. Um, you know, he didn't have a whole presentation. It's just him talking. So they're all kind of like, they clap. Gareth, the Gemini killer's twin, he's just kind of like. So then later on, they're all sitting around eating. Dexter, Gareth's twin, and Al, the Rapunzel killer guy. Al, the Rapunzel killer guy, is talking about he was nervous during his show and tell. He's like, you know, my stomach was all queasy. It's so funny. He's clearly based off a John Wayne Gacy type of character. Um, that scene though, that was so creepy. Him killing the girl, creepy as hell. But anyway, so he's talking about him being nervous. So Gareth goes, you know, speaking of show and tells, Red, yours was interesting. And he's like, you know, Prater is really a man of details. He likes to know the gory details, and you didn't do any of that. So as he's saying this to Dexter, Uma Thurman comes up behind him and says, Mr. Prater would like to see you. So he's like, okay. So of course Dexter's nervous because what the hell is homeboy gonna say? So he follows. So she leads him to Leon Prater, who's like in this clearing, and there's like a table, and he motions for Dexter to sit, and he starts talking about his, you know, his show and tell. And I thought he would have hated it, but he was like, he basically says, he's like, I loved your show and tell because you were so vulnerable. Um, you know, no one's ever that vulnerable. When it comes to the show and tells, it's just very, he's like, I am a details man, but I like that you opened up and told us how you felt, you know, while he was killing. So Peter Dinklage pours himself a little drinky drink and he's like, you know, there's a lot more to Leon Prater. So he starts, excuse me, so he starts telling Dexter about his parents. He's like, do you know about my parents? And Dexter's like, yeah, I heard they died in a car crash. And he's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that. So basically he starts telling Dexter this story of his parents were killed in a hit and run. And he watched both of his parents die. And he said it, you know, was traumatic and devastating. And he wrote, they caught the guy who killed his parents. The guy went to prison, and Leon Prater wrote him a letter, you know, expressing all this pain and how upset he was. And so the dude responds back, and he describes how even in the letter it just seemed like there was no remorse. So he writes him back. They start a writing back and forth, and eventually he goes to visit him. And Prater ends up becoming friends with the man who killed his parents. Like he's like I could relate to him. I was able to, crazy as hell. So Dexter looks at him and he goes, "You don't think he might have been manipulating you?" Which clearly he was. And he's like, "No, he was being open and honest with me." Dexter's like, "Open and honest, but you were a child." And he's like, "But I was in control of him. I was in control of the whole thing because I knew his details. I knew the details about why he killed, and I had control of him." Okay, sir. And he's like, "And because of that, I would never be scared again. I would never be a scared little boy ever again." And he's like, "We talked all the time after that, but he didn't make it till his 50th birthday and I was alone again." And Dexter's like, "So is that when you started collecting serial killers?" And he's like, "Well, those places are full of people like him." Talk about prisons. So while he's sitting there talking to Leon Prater over in whatever borough he lives in, I think it was Brooklyn. I'm gonna just say Brooklyn for the sake of saying Brooklyn. Batista's ass pulls up to Bless' house where Dexter lives. And Bless is outside, friendly as hell as always. Batista rolls up and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a friend of Dexter's from Miami. I was just dropping in to see him." So they start talking, and of course Bless lets him in. So back at the creepy serial killer gang, Dexter is now sitting with Gareth, the Gareth's twin, and they're out there talking. And Dexter's bullshitting him, pretending to be a big fan. And he's like, "How did you guys do it? How did you pull off? How did you pull off doing all those? The police not figuring out that it was two of you guys." And he's like, "I knew it was two of you because there's no way one person could do all that because do killed in twos." So the twins like, "Well, we were never seen in public together, and we would meet up certain places. We had a very unique way of communicating with each other." So Dexter, of course, he gets that shit-eating grin and he goes, "Oh, so that ticket that was left in the book at the library, that was for you." And he's like, Dexter's ass. So Dexter's like, "Yeah, I killed your brother, motherfucker." He doesn't say that. That was what I said. So he's talking shit to the brother, and the brother's like, "So this is the opportunity." They kind of get into a fight, and Dexter fucking stabs him. He breaks the glass and shoves the shit through his neck, and then he ends up cutting himself. So they of course, they're all like, "What's going on?" They run over, and Dexter's like, "He attacked me! Oh my god, he was attacking me!" Ends up killing him. And Dexter, I'm thinking, Dexter, you done took out the whole crew. You just got to take out Ponytail Dude, Leon, and Uma, and we good. By the way, I'm gonna tell you my theory about Uma Thurman's character, Charlie. I don't think she's bad. I think she's so Dexter kills Garrett's twin in front of everybody, big display, and he's happy. So when they run up and they're like, "What's happening?" He was like, "He attacked me." So he throws in Lowell's name and talks about some other stuff, and he's like, "Yes." As he's walking, they were like, "Charlie's gonna, bandage you up, Uma Thurman," and he's just happy because he's like, three birds, one stone, because he was able to kill both twins and take care of the Lowell Neil Patrick Harris situation. So Uma Thurman is patching him up, and she's like, "If he had cut you any closer to, you would have hit some artery, blah blah blah, and bled out." She's like, "I know because I can do it," and he's like, "Lucky me." Cross town, Harrison is at the college texting Dexter like, "Where are you?" Because he's ready to start. He's ready to go on this tour of the school. He ends up meeting this cute blonde girl who ends up being a tour guide, and he ends up doing the tour without Dexter, and is talking to the cute blonde chick. So Dexter comes back. They fly everybody back to Manhattan, and of course now he's hauling ass because he's got to get to this. He's got to go meet up with Harrison. So Harrison's talking to the girl, and she's like, "So do you know when your dad's coming?" He's like, "I don't know. He's running late." And she had asked him that before the tour started. Of course, after the tour, the dad is still not there. So then they see Dexter She points out the dad and brings him over to him, and she's like, "That's your dad?" And he's like, "Yeah." Long story short, she asked him out. Dexter's happy that they caught up. They're chatting, him and Harrison, and they're told they can go sit in on a criminology class. Yo, they get so Harrison walks in the class first, right? It's full of people. It's one of those stadium seating style college professor classrooms. And the Detective Olivia, in charge of the Empire Hotel Ryan Foster murder, is the guest detective speaker, y'all. So she sees Harrison, he sees her, and he's like, but he still goes and sits down because my thing is, if you leave, you look really guilty. So he goes and sits down. Dexter walks in like a minute after him. She looks up and immediately sees Dexter. She's like, he walks in, goes and sits down next to Harrison, and they watch her lecture. She does a lecture on the New York Ripper case. So she's explaining that to everybody. Harrison and Dexter are watching this. You know, Harrison is like, I'd be freaking out too because Homegirl don't play. I don't think Detective Olivia has she smiled yet? Write it in the comments if she smiled because it's Detective Wallace, y'all. Her name is Olivia Wallace, but for some reason I heard Olivia. I think Benson is Taylor. Anyway, so when Detective Wallace is doing this presentation in front of this college class where Harrison and Dexter are watching, she says something interesting. She talks about these murderers and psychopaths, and she says that they don't have real empathy and that they can't experience love or things like that. So afterwards, when everybody's leaving, Harrison and Dexter are still sitting in the seats and they're talking to each other. And Dexter, I love this moment because Dexter looks at Harrison. And he's like, even though she said, they can't experience love, he's like, I can experience love. I just can't experience it the way other people do. And those feelings will never change about how I feel about you. So Harrison's like, thanks, Dad. So they get up, they walk down the stairs, and she's, standing there because they're the only ones there. It's just the three of them. And she's like, I never thought I would run into you here. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, well, she goes, what are you doing here? And he goes, this is Harrison she's talking to. Harrison's like, because she goes, Mr. Morgan and Mr. Morgan. So Harrison's like, well, I know this is weird how we met under circumstances, but I kind of want to be a cop. And, this is Dexter's first time hearing this, obviously Detective Wallace's first time. And he's like, I was really impressed with how you handled that investigation and how you really wanted to give justice to Ryan Foster's victims. I admire that. And he's like, that's what I want to do. So, she's like, oh, that's great. So she turns her attention to Dexter and she's like, oh, she goes, so he's going to be following in your footsteps. And then Dexter's like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I met your colleague, Detective Batista from Miami Metro PD. And, Dexter is like in his head, like, oh. So he's like, oh, yes, Batista. He's like, yeah, he's a great guy. He went a little crazy after his partner turned out to be the Bay Harbor butcher. You know, he had these whole crazy theories, kind of went a little bit crazy, especially after his fiance died. He's laying it on thick. If we know her, she ain't buying that shit. I wouldn't either. I'd be like, I'm a run reference with Batista because he's very adamant about your ass. But Dexter paints this picture that Batista's the crazy one. Batista in this episode, he reminded me so much of Captain Ahab, and Dexter is his white whale. So Dexter, of course, is like he makes some little snarky comments to her about the New York Ripper, and he's like, just based off the blood spatter, he would have used something with the. So they leave, and they're out in the hallway, and Dexter's telling Harrison, it's great that you want to be a cop. You're keeping up with the family tradition. Your grandfather and Aunt Deb would have been proud. So they're in the car talking, and of course Harrison is asking about Batista because he's a little nervous, and Dexter's like, they're not gonna, nothing's gonna happen. It's Batista's gonna beat his head, and nothing's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna come of this. It's all been resolved. Like, we're good. Dexter, you've been doing this how long? When have you ever been totally good, sir? So anyway, Dexter goes home. You know, he takes of course he saved the little sliver of glass with Garrett's blood on it. So he of course pulls out the other twins' little blood slide and he puts the other drop of blood next to it. So there's two. Sick bastard. Anyway, so he goes upstairs to Bless house. He comes in to see them. He walks in. They playing fucking they playing that music that Batista, that little salsa action. I like salsa music. And Dexter walks in and sees Batista. It was hilarious. First of all, my sister pointed this out to me. Shout out to my sister Avalon. Avalon was like, "Did you catch what Batista said when Dexter walks in?" He goes, "Hey," he goes, "Surprise, hermano." Ah, kind of like, "Surprise, motherfucker." And Dexter's like, you know, playing it off like, "Hey." So they end up leaving. He somehow whisked him out. They're riding in the car, and Batista's like, "I'm gonna get your ass," basically. So they're kind of like talking shit to each other, and he's like, "I find it convenient that you would end up in a city where you're a rideshare driver in a city where there's a serial killer killing rideshare drivers." He's like, you know, how convenient. So they're going back and forth, and Batista's like, "I'm going to figure this out, you know? I'm going to figure it out." And so they're on this bridge. So Dexter um, pulls over to the side. He does the whole, and he's like, "Well, if you think, if you think I am who you're saying I am, then aren't you scared? Why wouldn't I get rid of you right now?" And Batista's kind of like, "Whatever." And he goes, "You know what? I think your ride's done here. Get out the car." So Batista's like, "All right." Batista drops something in like the side pocket thing on the door and gets out the car. Dexter rides off. Batista standing. Dexter. And see, here's the thing. If we're all rooting for Dexter, Batista's got to die, right? But I don't think Batista's going to die. Not by Dexter's hands, at least. Anyway, so Dexter drives off. The camera pans down to what Batista. Camera pans down to where Batista dropped that little something something in the car. It's a tracker. He's now tracking Dexter in his car. I wonder how long before Dexter figures out there's a tracker in the car. So the episode ends there with Batista in the middle on the damn bridge, probably the Washington Bridge, standing there watching Dexter drive off. Let me tell you something, y'all. This Dexter Resurrection is so good. It's not even funny. I feel like this season is almost as good as that first season one of Dexter. It rivals that. I'm loving it. The writing, the acting, the directing, fantastic. Here's my prediction. I think Leon Prater, Peter Dinklage is going to die. I think Dexter might end up taking him out. Peter Dinklage is going to be the final boss. We know that. I do think Batista may not make it, but I don't think it will be by the hands of Dexter. It'll either be Harrison. I could see it being Uma Thurman's character, Charlie. Who knows? Who knows? And I love that they don't give you previews for next week. At least not on Amazon Prime where I'm watching this. But anyway, Dexter Resurrection, y'all. This show is beyond fantastic. I love it. I think we're almost done. I think we only have a few more episodes and then we're done with this season. But it's great. Episode 7 was giving. Ooh, anyway, happy Monday, y'all. Start of a new week. Have a great week. Be nice to each other. Stay hydrated. Let me get out of here before this storm hits so I can return these videotapes.